All right. So very good evening, one and all present. Students from GIBS who have joined us, students from the other institutes who have joined us as well and watching us live. Let me extend my heartfelt welcome to one and all for this much awaited interaction that I would say from somebody who belongs to a country which has done a milestone, I would say, in the domain of innovations and in the domain of entrepreneurship. We at GIBS Business School, our flagship program has always been on the grounds of entrepreneurship. And I feel as a business school, it's our moral responsibility to nurture tomorrow's entrepreneurs. And we have been successfully doing from the last many years. And a platform like this is a great opportunity for all the students to listen to the experts. Dr. Sharon, you would be very happy that we have closer to 700 plus such interactions.
Wow.
From various experts, 100 plus interactions from the global leaders like you. And this is where, we have made the best use of the online platforms and we try to bring those experts to our students, not just our students, but I was making a point to the students fraternity of India who are watching us after this talk, has been uploaded in our YouTube channel. Knowledge sharing is at its best in GIBS. This is one very open statement that I would love to make at its very, very best. So all thanks to people like you who well connected, heartfully you accepted it. For all my viewers, I must say this. I connected Dr. Sharon over LinkedIn. Couple of minutes, I messaged her. Within few minutes, rapidly she responded. Within 2 days, I took a virtual meeting. Within 15 days, we are done with the talk. That's the speed at which we worked. And, I have no words to thank Dr. Sharon for this. I'm so happy and glad. On a personal note, I told you that we are very glad because I'm able to connect with somebody from the country whom I love the most. So on behalf of GIBS Business School, on behalf of all the students out here, the management staff, and the teaching and non-teaching staff, let me extend my heartfelt welcome to Dr. Sharon. Thank you so much for being a part. I look forward for a great and exciting interaction with you. Dr. Sharon is an author, innovation, and entrepreneurship expert, and also the former executive director of the Technion Entrepreneurship Center from Israel. And today we have coined our interaction very beautifully. We have made it innovation without limits, exploring Israel's entrepreneurial ecosystem. Well, Dr. Sharon, not everyone knows Israel in detail as how I know. So considering them that most of them might not have heard this name on the other grounds, right? When I say the other grounds, I'm talking from the innovation, I'm talking from the entrepreneurship point of view. So here's the first question to you. Israel is also always referred to as startup nation, no doubt about it. So for those who are very new to this topic, what makes Israel deserve this title?
Yes. Okay, first, let me just say thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here and share my knowledge and experience with the GIBS students and ecosystem. It's an honor for me to speak about my own country and the innovation that thrives in Israel. So for your question, Israel is many times referred to as the startup nation, but it's not because we have the highest number of startups. It's because we have made innovation a national capability, if you want. So let me start with some statistics. It's a very small country. We have less than 10 million in population. And we have limited natural resources in this country, but still we are consistently ranked the highest country of startups per capita. The statistics say around 1,400 startups per capita in Israel, which is way higher than the next one, which is US with 4,500 startups per capita. We also have a very active R&D investment ecosystem. maybe the largest around the OECD countries, with Israel investing over 6% of its GDP into R&D, which is considered extremely high. And it's not just startups, by the way, it's high tech in general. So the tech market in Israel is really the main economic engine for this country. It is responsible for about 20% of the GDP, about 50% of the exports of this country into the world, and probably around 15% of employment in the high-tech industry. And maybe one last thing before we characterize a bit more with your questions about the startup nation, it's worth pointing the resilience of this ecosystem, of this innovative country, because we are starting from October 2023 in a consistent war situation and uncertain situation. And even in these hard, difficult years, the startup and innovation is still booming and still thriving. Maybe last year was a booming year with the high-tech investment and exits of startups as well. So it's also very extremely resilient in terms of its innovation capabilities. Yeah.
Lovely. And as you rightly pointed out about the government's involvement in this, no doubt it is also turning out to be one of the finest entrepreneurial hub. So how do you describe this entrepreneurial ecosystem in Israel? What are the key pillars, that have made it one of the world's leading innovation hub?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think I will describe this key pillars, and I want the audience to already think about this. It's something that is not unique to a specific country. Any country can pick it up. I think the first key pillar is the strength of science and engineering in Israel. We have world-class universities producing excellent engineers, computer science, medical, life science, medicine, with over 1,500 deep tech startups coming out of universities. So science and technology is definitely, and engineering is definitely one key pillar. The other one is government as an enabler. We'll talk a bit about this later, but the government placed itself with a role to reduce the risk and build the right ecosystem with grants, with incubators, and encourage private money to come in later on when the risk is a bit lower. And that brings me to the third pillar, a very mature venture capital market. It's one of the largest and well-known VC areas around the world. And one interesting thing about the venture capital market in Israel is 60% of it is actually foreign investors. So it is connecting startups with the world from the very beginning, with Silicon Valley, with Europe, with Asia, etc. The next pillar, I would say, is a global mindset. Talking about foreign investors, we are a very small country. We can talk about this again later on. But it means that startups are actually born global from day one, because Israel is such a small country, and it has a lot of meaning for the ecosystem. It's built to create international partnerships, international relationships, and there are a lot of international big tech companies building their R&D in Israel as well, like Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, Apple. The list is really endless. And lastly, it's, I think, the entrepreneurial culture, which we will talk about later in one of your questions, which is a key pillar as well. Summarizing this, there's no one key pillar. It's a combination of these things that create the right ecosystem for innovation to become a national capability.
You somewhere in the answer spoke about mindset, which I believe is very, very important. You spoke about global mindset. My next question was very aptly on that. Many people talk about innovation. They say it begins with a mindset rather than technology. I completely agree with this. So, what qualities or cultural values do you believe make Israel's naturally entrepreneurial country? What do you think?
Actually, I think that's maybe one of the most interesting questions you can ask me. Because a culture, so all the other pillars I mentioned before are things that you can more easily replicate, but a culture is something that is not so easy to change and adapt. And I think that's one really unique and strong point to mention for Israel as a startup nation. And it starts maybe with a word that we say in Hebrew, we call it in Hebrew chutzpah. It means it's a combination of audacity and directness and the willingness to question things and not get anything as a default, always challenge and question and be very straightforward about it. And you will see an engineer challenging its CEO. You will see a student debating with his teacher, and it's all very well accepted. And it brings this to great discussions, and therefore also better inputs, better ideas, more innovative solutions. Beyond this chutzpah element, it's also a very flat or high, non-hierarchical society. So what matters most is not necessarily how you rank in the organization or in the university, but the quality of your ideas, of your work, etc. It's reflected in a lot of things. Like if you look at our government, we call them in private names. We call people with their private names, and there's this very flat, open approach to people who should be in the hierarchy higher than you are. It might, and that's an honest thing, people might feel it's a little bit chaotic because Israelis are not afraid to say what they think, to be very abrupt about it, to be very honest and straightforward. So it might sound a bit chaotic and sometimes maybe not polite, but we are very used to it, and it at bottom line gives an edge to the output of discussions and ideas. The next thing I want to say is that it's a society that is comfortable with uncertainty, and that is because of a lot of several reasons. One is that Israel is a country that was built by immigrants, and immigrants already made the biggest risk took the biggest risk in their life. They decided to build their life from scratch and move to another country. So it's a nation of people that are willing to take risk and also learn to live with ambiguity and accept ambiguity and uncertainty. And by the way, that also means they are willing to fail because they understand that uncertainty is part of the game. But we can talk about this later on. So basically, it's a culture that allows people to take risk. It's kind of a permission to challenge assumptions and take risk, and don't be afraid to do that. And I think that's probably the strongest part of it.
That's indeed a very strongest part. Absolutely agree on that. We being an educator and academicians, I would love to ask you this question about the Israeli education system. How does it encourage creativity, critical thinking, or building entrepreneurial mindset among the students? How is the education system in Israel connecting to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'll connect it a little. I start my answer with connecting it a little bit to the culture part I mentioned before. So even before we talk about entrepreneurial programs and learning how to create business or build businesses, it's this thing that allow young students to think independently, to question teachers openly, and develop critical thinking. And I think that's more of a cultural thing. It's not just specific for innovation, but it's very strong. Then there are formal and informal programs to encourage entrepreneurship, even around young students in high school or even before high school. The formal programs, like the National Authority and the Ministry of Education recently launched a big program for to encourage and learn entrepreneurship in high school across all sectors of the Israeli society. For example, a program that takes high school students, matches them with real business world mentors, and together they try to solve real problems from the market. And there's also informal programs like robotics and computer coding, and there's something called Young Entrepreneurs, which I mentor and judge every year for the last, 20 years or so, with junior high students thinking about their idea and developing it into a product throughout the year. So basically, all these youth movements and volunteering programs that encourage leadership and encourage teenagers to take responsibility from early age. And then also, if you think about formal educational systems, there's also a role here for the army service. So every 18-year-old in Israel goes through an army service, unfortunately, but it has
Yes, I have heard about it. Yes.
Yes, but it has some advantages because this experience teaches them to take responsibility very early, to deal with uncertainty, to be leaders and take leadership responsibility at very young age, and also even technology related domains and areas like surveillance and etc. So that's also in some way part of the educational process. And then lastly, it's the universities. And the universities in Israel are known for their entrepreneurship centers, for teaching entrepreneurship, for tech transfer offices, like all the things you need beyond research activities to actually turn breakthrough science into real impact. Yeah.
Well, great to hear that, indeed. And also, this is only possible, what you said is only possible when you have a tremendous support from the government as well. Now, my next question is on that. Government undoubtedly plays a significant role, and I'm very sure, if I'm right, that Israel's government also supports a lot of innovations and treating that entrepreneurship ecosystem. So could you share some policies or some initiatives that has been successfully nurtured the startups by the Israeli government?
Yeah. I think maybe first it's worth saying that the government sees itself as the place of the government is not to replace the market, it's just to create the market. So public money is there for de-risking, and private money is for scaling, and that's a combination that works very well. And I'll give you some examples. Maybe the most known and important initiative of the government in Israel to encourage innovation is something that was called Yozma in 1993. What happened in 1993, the government realized that there is a lot of engineers and scientists, but there was no investment ecosystem yet in place. So they built a program. They offered $100 million, but I'm not sure about, $100 million. And they invited co-investors to join them. And they created a platform where venture capitals can start, can be developed. And the key thing about this initiative was that they gave the private money the permission to buy the whole fund after 5 years. So around 2000, there was already a great ecosystem of VC funding, and the government took a step back. So they made it eventually completely a private equity market, which was a very important initiative, and actually created the foundation for the investment ecosystem in Israel up until today. We have what we call the Israel Innovation Authority, which is the body in the government that is responsible for funding, encouraging, initiating R&D programs that are too early for private money to be invested in, like grants and incubators. And it's also, I mentioned resilience. The government also helps adapt the system and adapt the ecosystem as we move forward. For example, with the last 3 years, with a lot of uncertainty around high tech, there are new programs initiated to make sure that startups can continue developing their science and developing their product and get money and get investment, although the uncertainty level has raised. So they put up new programs in place to make sure this wheel is continuing to go and move forward, and actively adapting this ecosystem for that.
While you were answering, you also mentioned about investment and venture capital and all that. Because let's agree to the fact, in any country for that matter, the most important or a challenging task is access to capital, correct? So how does Israelis venture capital ecosystem support startups? Maybe I would say from ideation to the global scale. How do they do that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Without capital, great ideas are great. Advanced research is great, but bottom line, you need the collaboration with the market and with the investment funds to turn it into a real impact. I think there is a mechanism here in place for very early stage where the risk is very high. You can find national or the Innovation Authority that I mentioned before puts in grants and puts in programs to absorb the risk. As the ideas scale and the program and the product becomes more clear, then the international venture capital ecosystem comes in. I mentioned already, I think that about 60% of the venture capital market in Israel is foreign investors, is involving foreign investors, which make the startups from day one connected or well connected to the international market, like Silicon Valley or Europe or Asia or wherever. And it keeps on growing with the startup or the company. But one thing I want to mention as well, it's like a flywheel, because once a founder is successful, they run through IPO or through acquisition, and their company is mature, they bring this knowledge and experience back to the investment ecosystem. They become angel fund investor themselves, or they join a VC fund, or they become, of course, mentors and partners in this ecosystem. So it's not just that they absorb the existing knowledge, they share their knowledge and experience back with the new startups and the new founders that come. It's like next generation flywheel for founders and startups, and it's proven. Just in 2025, the Israeli high tech roughly raised $15 billion, and the exits were, I think, around between 70 to 80 billion US dollars for startup exits. So it's a system that is by now well proven.
That's indeed great. See, while anyone who knows about Israel, if you ask them about Israel, people talk about technologies, right? So if I want to ask you this question on what are the emerging technologies do you believe Israel is currently leading in? With the limited knowledge, what I can guarantee tell you that Israel has fantastic defense technologies. Israel has fantastic space technologies. Well, otherwise, barring these, you think there are any other emerging technologies which that you believe that Israel is currently leading in, and which sectors are likely to shape the next decade of innovation? I want to know the viewpoint of yours in this.
Yeah. Okay, let me start with the strongest areas of Israeli innovation. And I think you're right with defense and space, but the number one probably is cybersecurity. We have very strong cybersecurity technologies here in Israel. In fact, I would say probably 7 out of the 10 most well-known Israeli companies are cybersecurity. With last year, Wiz and CyberArk are two companies that had a very big acquisition, one by Google and one I don't remember, with tens of billions of dollars. So definitely, cybersecurity, and also now connecting AI with cybersecurity. So AI is becoming part of enterprises mechanisms and enterprises work. And you need not just the infrastructure for them to work, but you need the infrastructure to make it safe. So combining cybersecurity with AI systems is, I would say, also now growing. Also, beyond that, finance. I mean, AI for enterprises in areas like finance and healthcare. Of course, quantum computing is strong and growing. Defense tech has always been strong. We have a very strong domain in agritech and water tech, which, by the way, I think is also very important for India. We can talk about this collaboration later on, digital health and medical device. And in general, I think if you look at the future, technology is becoming more and more accessible. So I think the core trend would be combining different disciplines and different areas to create new things like AI and defense, or advanced material and climate tech. Combining different disciplines together, I think that's where the edge the next edge or the next breakthroughs will come from. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason.
I'm so sorry. It was
now I
muted by
can.
mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, having said that, India also has collaborated with Israel on many projects. In fact, India has many collaborative projects with Israel on the defense. We are doing joint space projects. I don't know whether if you're aware, India had many years ago, we had some water crisis, water problems. And it was Israeli team which came to India and find out the possible solution. And, there was another team which flew to Israel and probably learned about the technologies. And, they have started implementing it here. And the water crisis has solved to a greater extent. Right? You spoke about agritech as well. There's a lot of technology related to agriculture, what India has designed. We have got collaborations or assistance from Israel. I'm very happy and honored to mention at this point of time. Well, we all know that, many Israeli startups, they think globally from day one. That's a beautiful mindset that they have developed. So what strategies help them scale internationally despite operating from a very relatively small domestic market?
Yeah.
You mentioned in your opening remarks that you're only 10 million population.
Right. Actually, I think the answer to your question is in the question itself, right?
Okay.
Because it's such a small market.
Right.
Startups have to think internationally from day one. So Israel is considered, in terms of the start in the founders' eyes, as just a beta testing place, right? I mean, it's nice to sell to Israeli companies, but it's really a small market. So when you develop your startup or start developing your idea, you have to think globally from day one. It's a necessity. It's not a choice. It's a fact.
Absolutely.
And what it means is that you build your venture from day one with a global mindset. It influences the way you develop your product and the way you price your product and the people you gather around you, and a lot of things that the way you build your venture, and also the money that you raise and how you raise it. So if you pitch to investors here in Israel and you are a seed looking for seed money, they will want to know your international go-to-market strategy, even if you're just pitching, if you're just in a seed stage. And think about it, if startup in India or in the US only needs to think about the global market way after they are successful locally. But here, even when you raise seed funding, you already need to show where you're heading. Is it Europe or Asia or the US, and how you plan to do this? So it's really embedding this international mindset from day one in the company. And it also means that you develop or you build your company in a way that would allow you to do this. So for example, a lot of scale-ups, they keep their technology development and R&D in Israel, but their marketing and their sales teams are actually placed abroad. I think maybe only 25% of marketing and salespeople in the high-tech area are actually positioned in Israel. They are spread around the world because they need to be where the market is. So that's the way it is. It's just, there's no other way.
There's no other way. As you rightly
Yeah.
said, it's not a choice, it's something that you need to mandatorily go for.
Exactly.
Lovely. Now, I think the first 30 minutes we have really spent sharing information about how Israel has grown over the last few years in terms of innovations, technologies, and entrepreneurship. You come from such a beautiful country which has seen such, innovations. If I ask you this question, now this particular talk of our interaction today is being viewed by many budding entrepreneurs who wants to be an entrepreneurs of tomorrow, right? So if a student today wants to build a startup, what are the three most important skills or habits that you would suggest them to develop themselves to become a successful entrepreneur of tomorrow?
Okay. I will try to combine my answer with my personal experience mentoring, I don't know, thousands of startups, and also with what I just shared with you about the culture and innovation in Israel. I think maybe the very first advice is to become evidence-driven. So success in entrepreneurship is not about luck or intuition. It's about learning and finding the evidence and the data to support your business assumptions, find real problems with real customers, and develop the solution to fit this problem. So don't let AI decide for you. Make sure you ask the customers themselves and base your decisions on evidence. The second thing would be, and that is related a little bit to what we mentioned with ambiguity and failing, don't wait for the perfect idea to come along, because there's never a perfect idea. There's always uncertainties and always some challenges and ambiguity. And if you wait until the perfect plan comes into your mind, you'll never become an entrepreneur. So, you need to understand how to make decisions under incomplete information and adjust it later on if necessary, which leads me probably to my third advice, which is build resilience through adaptation, right? I mean, it's very easy to if you hit the wall, what do you do, right? I mean, it's very easy to take the keys and throw them into the ocean and say, okay, I tried, it didn't work. But here in Israel, we have this sense of resilience, and it doesn't matter what you throw at us, we will survive, right? It's true from the defense perspective, but it's also true from a business perspective. Make sure you build your startup in a way that would allow you to adapt and change over time. So if you hit the wall, you're able to actually maybe change the product, change the solution, change the technology, change the market, adapt your ideas, and try again. And I think this resilience perspective is, and allowing yourself to fail during this experimentation and learning process is really important. Bottom line, it's a learning process, and you need to look at this as developing your learning abilities and your learning skills to be able to be successful.
Wonderfully said. I made this statement in my opening remarks as well, that India and Israel enjoys a fantastic and a very strong diplomatic ties. Not just diplomatic ties, technological ties as well. But if I have to link this with IRE, which is innovation, research, and entrepreneurship, where do you see the greatest opportunities for collaboration between these two countries, India and Israel, in terms of IR&E?
Okay, so honestly, this is not my hat, right? I mean, I can just share what I know from the local, speaking with local people. I think, first of all, I'm sure there is a room for collaboration, and it could be extremely powerful. Israel can bring the science and the rapid experimentation culture, and India can bring its great engineers and manufacturing capabilities and scale. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of room for co-innovation and co-creation, and this can really, together we can develop solutions that really can make an impact. I think there are a couple of mechanisms already in place. The India-Israeli Industrial R&D and Technological Innovation Fund, it's called I4F, I think, which put together hundreds of millions of dollars for this joint R&D and collaboration. And also recently, the governments just signed up some agreement to invest more in what they call India-Israeli Startup Bridge, which is super interesting, I think. And I think for students who are listening to us and are exploring now or starting to create their own venture, I would definitely encourage them to look at these funds, which encourage co-collaboration and research. In terms of where or which domains this collaboration could thrive, I think there's endless opportunities, but probably again targeting water tech and agritech and AI and defense and climate actions, and I think the list is so long. There's no reason to narrow it into a specific domain. I'm sure that a joint collaboration and enjoying the strength of both cultures and both countries could really lead to, I don't know, market solutions that make a tremendous impact on the world.
Absolutely agree. Well, end of the day, what really plays a big game is how strong your education setup is. I did ask you a question before to you on Israel's education. Now, if I can ask you this reverse, what role a business schools and university, particularly institutions like us, GIBS, how we should play in creating globally competent entrepreneurs or innovation leaders of tomorrow. In fact, I'm very happy to say we are on the attempt. We are on the vision. We have already nurtured many young entrepreneurs, which has resulted in successful launch of this venture, and we are very happy, to see that. But then there is always scope for elevation. There is always scope for improvement. What is that piece of advice from you to GIBS?
Yeah, I think first of all, you're already on the right track. One thing I would say is to build international networks and encourage students to learn what's happening in countries around the world and develop connections with networks around the world. And I guess that's exactly the reason you invited me to speak. So I'm sure you're already doing very good steps in this direction. I also would say, I think I mentioned before that I see the future as combination of disciplines working together is the thing that will bring the next big ideas to the world. So I think if you bring, as a business school, if you bring different disciplines together, like combining business students with engineers, with scientists, with designers, with other faculties and other disciplines, I think it's really powerful. And also just exposing and connecting students to real problems, like bringing people from the industry to share their challenges and share their problems, and exposing your students to not just hypothetical case studies. Don't just work on hypothetical case studies, work on real problems in the real world, and you get to learn more about what the society needs. And my last thing is and that again relates a little bit to the beginning of the discussion here, to teach your students to experiment and to try out and to treat their ideas as assumptions and check them out and learn to accept if their idea is not valid and it's not good, and try again. So this whole culture of experimenting, learning, and adapting and changing, I think it's also part of the role of a business school, with students learning how to become future entrepreneurs.
Very true. Before I go for a closing question, I'll take a couple of questions from the students who have raised this. Well, this is a very interesting question. What is your piece of advice to the students, the budding entrepreneurs, who has the mindset of fear of failure?
Yeah. I think it's a cultural, it's a personal and a cultural thing. There are people who are more risk averse and people who are more open to take risk, and there are societies who are more who treat failure as a problem, and societies who treat failure as a tuition for the next successful stage in life. I don't know exactly where India is in terms of a country and the culture of failure, but I think it's a necessary element to make innovation thrive. Understanding that if you try something new and it's innovative and new, you might fail. It's part of the game. It's not a failure. It's trying hard to do something new, which means it will not always work. And understanding that this failure is actually your learning. You learn so much by failing. If you won't try, you will never learn. So I strongly think learning and failing is much better than not trying at all. In fact, here in Israel, if you look at failing entrepreneurs, they have a much higher chance to get investment in the second time as second-time entrepreneurs than novice entrepreneurs, because they already paid their tuition. They already failed. They already learned a lot from trying. So if you, at any point, if you could compare a second-timer entrepreneur who failed at the first time versus a novice entrepreneur, here in Israel, we will always consider the failure as a learning experience. And that's what I want to share with your students. Don't be afraid to fail. It's part of the game. It's okay. And it's something that you will learn so much from, so that next time you can be more successful.
Absolutely. The fantastic piece of advice, As it is rightly said, a failure is a stepping stone for success.
Right.
So definitely one should know success, one should know failure. That's what the life is all about. It's a part and parcel of the game. Fantastic. Another very interesting question. If I have a business idea, how do I know that this idea is going to be a successful venture tomorrow?
Look, we don't have a crystal ball to tell us the future. But what we do have is the ability to ask the right questions and bring in the data and the evidence to support or refute our assumptions about these questions. So what I think we need to do is, if you have an idea, really sit down and list your key assumptions about this idea. Who do you think are the customers? What is the value proposition that you bring them? Why would they use your solution? How would you make money out of it, right? What's your competitors, or what's your key advantage over these competitors? So these at the beginning are questions that are very hard to answer. You just need to put down on a piece of paper what you think is the right answer and treat it as assumptions. Now take these assumptions and build a plan, a learning plan on how you bring data to support or refute them. So you need to go and talk with potential customers. You need to do your market research on what are the competitive ideas and solutions out there. How much value do customers see in your solution? How much they will be willing to pay? Who would actually need it and pay for it, etc. And as I mentioned in my advice before, turn this into an evidence-based decision. And don't be afraid if you figure out that something is not a good idea. It's fine. It's better to learn it early on than to realize this after you invest so much money, sweat, and tears into it. So make this initial learning an experimentation a must do before you further invest in your idea. And that would help you to really understand if it's a good and attractive business opportunity.
Very good. This is interesting too. Unlike Israel, majority of our industries in India are human-driven, meaning, we have a lot of employees, whether it is a small scale, medium size, or a large scale, we have huge number of employees. What is your piece of advice on the startup founders in terms of people management skills? Meaning, how do I manage my team of employees in ensuring that we all work together in reaching the vision that we have kept for ourselves?
Yeah. I think, first of all, it is important to pick the right team members and those that share your vision and share your values and complement your existing capabilities and experience. I think unlike large entities, which are common in India, as you mentioned, when you build your own startup, the team is small, but it's really, really important. And also investors look at the team and make their investment decisions based on it. So at least at the beginning, make sure you pick the right people. They shouldn't be similar to you. On the contrary, you want people that think differently. You want people that come from different background and different experience. You want to have confrontations and challenge and debate inside the team because that's where great ideas come from. You want diversification, but you also want people to share the same vision and see the goals just like you do. And I think maybe it is important in terms of managing people to be very open about the process, about the vision and the mission and the challenges and the success, and share everything with the team, especially when it's a small team, to maintain the motivation to work hard and play hard and eventually hopefully be successful. It's a hard work, and we expect people to work hard with us, but we need to give them the motivation why they should do this and where do we see it and what's the impact that we are going to make on the world, etc. I think it's really important.
Fantastic. The interaction was so fruitful that we never knew that we have completed almost 1 hour of our time.
Right.
Lovely. I'm sure we had loads of takeaways for our students. Every now and then we organize such talks. We keep certain objectives in my mind. I must say, today's interaction, 100% of the objectives were met.
Mm.
I'm very sure about it. I'm very happy about it that, we were able to interact for such a long time, take up students' question as well. So before we wind up, before we wrap up, I would want to hear Dr. Sharon's final message to all the budding entrepreneurs of
Yeah.
India who wish to elevate themselves, who wish to scale up in their career. What is your great piece of advice to them?
Yes. Okay. I think, innovation is not a miracle. It's not a resource that you either have or you don't have. It's true for the country.
Agree.
It's true for the people, for the students and the founders. It's a set of habits that you can develop as a country or as a person, and especially being curious, questioning assumptions, learning continuously, collaborating with people who think differently. All this set of habits would allow you to become successful entrepreneurs. And if we look at the macro level, allow a country to become more innovative. So develop really the habit of learning rather than just wait until the perfect idea lands into or comes into your mind. I think that's my key message here. You can develop this muscle. It's a muscle. We practice just like we practice in the gym. We can practice with innovation and entrepreneurship, and the learning curve is absolutely amazing. So just do it.
Lovely, wonderful. That's indeed wonderful message for all of us. As I clearly mentioned, the 100% objective of this particular session fulfilled. I just didn't realize that we have completed 60 minutes of a wonderful interaction. Well, I would say, Dr. Sharon, this was just a beginning. We have many more interactions to go. And we find there is a lot of alignment that we can leverage on, we can work together, that can contribute to the students' future, to the students' success of GIBS Business School. On behalf of all the audiences out here, on behalf of all the faculty members and the GIBS management team, let me extend my heartfelt thanks to you for sparing your time. Wonderful listening to you, your journey, your viewpoints on the questions that were raised, incredible, right? And above all, India enjoys a fantastic ties and relationship with Israel. And I hope, God willing, this will continue to grow further, elevate to the next level in the coming years as well. And at the same time, for all the negatives that's happening in Israel and across the globe, we all pray for a massive peace everywhere.
Amen. We can say amen to that.
We hope for it. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharon. It was a pleasure interacting. And I also thank all the audiences for being a wonderful audience, for those wonderful questions. And for those who are not of GIBS, please do follow us and subscribe us and all in our social media platform, GIBS Business Schools, GIBS IRE Talks. And yes, my personal request, do follow Dr. Sharon in her LinkedIn page. She's very active, and her contribution to the work is incredible. It's a great textbook for all of us, great learning for all of us. This is my message and request to all the audiences out here. But otherwise, this is Guru Prasad signing off, and thank you everyone for watching this session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharon. Looking forward for many more interactions.
Thank you for inviting me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.